welcome to Hannover, Germany, and the A320 from Phoenix. Welcome also to a full-blown winter cold and sniffles video here on YouTube. Hello, my name is Dave. I do the spy flight over on Twitch, yeah, it's wintertime, so naturally, winter cold here. So thank you for coming in. Welcome if you are new. This is generally where I go and try and do a full cold and dark flight. Over on Twitch, it's more interactive, flying friends, having a good time. I've also recently launched pre-flight briefings over on Patreon. That seems to be going over pretty good. Links, of course, in the description. And here's the first of multiple apologies that I will do for cold and sniffles and everything else on today's flight. But I did want to take this flight here. First of all, the Hannover airport is a really cool airport. Gatwick is a freeware airport, which is really good. But the other thing is it's always a good idea, especially, if you fly with friends and, you're not used to doing on-time departures and things like that. It's good to do just a simple by yourself practice flight so that you can kind of brush up on skills, especially ahead of a very big event, which we have coming up, which is why on today I'm doing a flight here in the Fenix A320 because we do have an event coming up. It's the Caribbean Shuttle event, and so I'm going to go fly into my departure airport before we head on off to the Caribbean. So what are we doing today? Well, I'm taking the Fenix A320, doing a full cold and dark flight. This is a favorite in-depth airplane of mine here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It really is. This is one of the most complete airplanes I think I've ever experienced in any kind of a simulator. Navigraph, SimBrief, and SimToolkit Pro are some of the add-ons I'm using. I'm also using SkyVector, and we'll also be yapping a little bit about an on-time departure on this flight too. So I'm going to also mention my Navigraph stack of charts and fuel monitoring. There's a special number on the flight plan that you need to see. I also like to talk about not taxiing too fast, especially in a VATSIM event, so that you can stay where you're supposed to stay. And I also do like to suggest that you do short hops. Yes, the VATSIM event that's coming up is going to be sort of a long haul, but the more short hops you do, the more practice you get at landing and taking off. Today's flight is Hannover, Germany to Gatwick. We're departing off of runway 27 left. We do have a nice flight today. We're going into EGKK, Gatwick's 26 left. Our cruise for today is flight level 380. Flight time today is an hour and 45 minutes. So one of the things I do is I usually stop the video when we get to cruise, and then about 100 miles from the arrival, that's when we start it up again. So the whole point also of these full cold and dark flights is so that you can stop the video now, load up Flight Simulator, and fly along beside me. Now, the weather is probably going to change because this is recorded, so your approaches and your departures might be a little bit different than mine, but most of this should help you out, at least as far as seeing what buttons to push when, and one way of doing things. So here we are. Welcome to Hannover, Germany. We are at gate 16 here. You can see the jetway isn't even over. You could use GSX. My GSX is not playing nicely with this airport, so we're going to go ahead and just use the airport's pushback truck and jetway controls and everything else. So let's stop yapping and jump into the best seat in the house. Yeah, this really is the best seat. Now, before I usually do anything, I'll look over here and I'm going to twist my stick around a little bit and make sure that it's working. I'm going to go and run the rudder pedals, just make sure those are working. I'm also going to roll my throttles forward, and I'm going to go ahead and move my flap lever and my speed brake lever. USB connectors tend to disconnect, especially in the wintertime. If you've got your furnace going, like I do because it's snowing outside, it creates a lot of static electricity, and USB stuff can be a little susceptible to that. So that's why I go and move the controls around before we even start. Coming over here, one of the big questions I get about the Fenix is, where do I get that really cool iPad? Well, this is the electronic flight bag, and yes, it comes with the airplane. So if you're flying an Airbus and it doesn't have this right here, you need to go and make sure you're in the Fenix and not the default. 000 is the combination, is the lock combination to hop into the plane. And the first thing that I will usually do is go over to Pilot Brief. And I will just go over here and I will wait for a second and download the flight plan into Pilot Brief. This is my SimBrief flight plan. Now, I also have a copy of the flight plan right here in PDF form. So this is my PDF flight plan. I always have that standing by. And I usually save a copy of it to my desktop. Now, sometimes, most times I don't even need it there, but the day that I don't save it to the desktop is the day that I need it. So when you're generating your flight plan with SimBrief, save a copy of the PDF over there. Come on over to the Fenix app. And let's go ahead and click it right here. And then we're going to import from SimBrief. This should get the flight plan. I'm doing real weather, real time. We have 10 minutes to departure. Oh my gosh, how are we going to do an on-time departure? Well, it is kind of possible here, but we're going to probably be a little bit late. Let's go over to ground services. And the first thing I'm going to do is toggle my jetway. And if you go outside, you can see, well, look at that. There comes the jetway. So GSX is super duper nice for sure. But it's really cool. Just within this airplane, you can toggle your own jetway and get it out there. So that's opened my 1L door, one left door. That's the front door on the airplane. That's going to be, I don't have that one. That's shortcutted right now. And now at this point in time, we can go ahead and start to turn on the airplane. So we're going to go ahead and do battery 1 and battery 2. Here they come. Let's also do external power. We'll get that going too. I look over at the toolbar and check the date. Today is the 6th, and that's an even day, so I use navigation and logo light system number 2 on even days. On odd days, I use 1. They're identical, but that's how it is that I float back and forth. Sliding over here, we're going to fuel the airplane, so no smoking is going to go on too. And I like to go ahead and kick my overhead integrated lighting up. Just makes things a little bit easier to see up here on the overhead panel. While we're waiting for the self-test to pop up here, I usually will go and lift the armrest, and I'm going to go ahead and do the integrated lighting down here on the console too, on the pedestal, and that's going to add just a little bit more backlighting. You might need to adjust the autopilot here. There's 2 knobs under the autopilot. You can adjust the backlighting, and then you can also adjust the intensity of the numbers in the autopilot, and that's a cool thing to do too. You're going to probably want to do that when you're doing nighttime flying. So sometimes those numbers start to blaze at you. Okay, the master, all sorts of little alerts and stuff are here. No reason to worry about that. And the master was the master warning. I really like this airplane because I can run 2 independent McDo's here. So one of the first things I'll do is go over to ATSU. It stands for Air Traffic Services Unit. And then we're going to go to AOC, Air Operations Control. And I'm going to go to Flight Init. And we are going to init a data request. Because I have my airplane linked to my SimBrief account, it's going to go right on over to SimBrief and snag it. And there it is, EDDV to EGKK. Super duper simple. I'm going to go back to the menu. I'm going to go to received messages. I'm going to go to the FMGC on the other side and active navigation database. I'm on Navigraph, so that means everything is good to go there. Let's go to init. We have nav accuracy upgrade. Let's go ahead and clear that. GPS primary is lost. We'll clear that too. Now we're going to init another data request. So we kind of do that twice. That's because part of this is these are two different systems. So all the stuff that we're doing over on the ATSU system is different than the actual flight management computer. And then I'll look up here, EDDV, EGKK, that's correct. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this. And now it's time to look at the upper panel. We'll slide back and let's come on over here. So the first thing that we do on this one, and let's see if we can go down a little bit and tilt up and see a little bit better. So the way that I've seen some real-world pilots do this is we turn on ADIRS number 1 to nav, and we should have seen the on battery light flash up here. Let's see. This is not showing up too well. Let's go down a little bit more, because I think you're supposed to also see the fault light go on. Now, you can just turn them on 1, 2, 3 and you're done, but now let's go to ADIRS 2. The fault light goes on, goes out, and then it goes to on battery. And so when those things go out, that's good. Then we'll do the last one. While the last one's doing its thing, I'll slide over to the middle side, and then we can go ahead and test engine 1 fire and see all the lights go on and the things start beeping. Engine number 2 fire. And then be careful, because you see you've got the finger over here, and then make sure that you don't click closely to the APU. You could open up the little flap over the actual fire button and then inadvertently click that. Those little click zones are a little bit close together there. Now then, we're going to come over here. Let's go to mass and balance. We're going to need to push back, so load the aircraft, and we're going to do the fast load. So fast load is going. Passengers are walking down the jetway. Remember, we don't turn on the APU here in Europe until the last minute, and a lot of airports are doing a ground start. I did crew supply of oxygen. I'm also going to come over here to cargo heat. I usually turn the aft cargo heat up to medium in case somebody puts a dog down there or something, you know. We don't want frozen puppies and stuff. So there we go. We're going to do DLH. So Lufthansa, and I'm going to put that in there, and I totally forgot my flight number. So DLH. Now you have to put a flight number too. 441 is my standard flight number. There we go. Now we're going to come over here and IRS init, and I'm kind of moving slow with the flight management computer here. Confirm and align. Oh my gosh, look at all these telexes. What is this? Lufthansa flight report. EDDL, EDDF. I'm getting all of these. These are flight reports. Okay. These are received messages, and I've got a massive number of flight reports here. So, okay, this is unusual. I haven't seen this before, but these have been all of the flights, and I guess these are the flight reports, and they did not clean out. Well, okay then. I have not seen this before. This is unusual for me. So we've got a bunch of telexes, and we'll worry about that later. IRS init is good. I hadn't seen that before. Cost index. Cost index today is 5. I got that from the flight plan. So let's put 5 in over here. One of the things you're going to notice when you're clicking buttons on this airplane is you'll click, click, click. You're going fast, and the buttons don't press right. I think that they modeled that in there because that's the way the real airplane is. You're supposed to be slow and deliberate when you're putting stuff into this. We're going to go to the wind page, and we're going to request the winds. And while this is going, I'm just going to clear the rest of these out. Now, I don't know that this actually clears out all of my arrival reports, but those are a bunch of arrival reports that I didn't even know was there. Okay, wind data is good, and all you needed to do is grab it. I believe it has been inserted into the flight plan, and so life is good and wonderful there. So we'll clear that, and our cruise altitude is flight level 380. By now, this is usually the point where I'm going to go ahead and get my clearance if I'm on VATSIM. So we'll go and do that. Some airports by now, we've already gotten our PDC, which is really pretty cool. And the airplane continues to come to life. We are now within about 10 minutes of pushing back and starting. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the master switch on the APU. And if you come around here and look down here, you'll see the flap underneath the APU slowly opening. And you may even actually hear the little motor start to open up as well, which is kind of cool. And then after that, you can go ahead and just start the APU, and we're going to get that going there. Passengers are slowly filing onto the airplane. Let's go ahead and assume we've gotten our clearance. So we'll roger that and start doing some vectors, Victor, and there's your airplane reference for today. We are departing out of Hannover. We are looking at runway 27 left. So 27 left is our departure runway. We're going to be doing the VAXI 1 Foxtrot departure, VAXI 1 Fox. And sometimes it will give you a transition, sometimes it won't. Today it doesn't. We got a nice complete flight plan there. And everything's slowly starting to pop in here. You can go through, check your waypoints. If you were a good pilot, we would be checking all of our waypoints, but our waypoints are good. And then here is our arrival into Gatwick. Our arrival into Gatwick is going to be 26 left. So ILS 26 left. We are coming in on the T-Berg 2 Golf. Now then, this is the point where memory starts to fail me awfully. So T-Berg 2 Golf. And now it's going to, is there a transition? There wasn't a transition, but I'll bet there is a VIA. So the transition is going into the star. The VIA is going from the star to the ILS. Now we're going to get into me yammering about what I call my stack of charts. In the old days, the pilots would stack up their paper charts in the order that they needed them. And so I've gone over to Navigraph, and you can see there's my parking stand chart. We're over here at gate 16. Here is a runway chart to get us over to our departure runway, which is 27 left. And then here's the VAXI departure. Off of 27 left till we go to VAXEV. Here is the arrival coming in, and we are coming in via Tebra. So Tebra is right here. We're not coming in on this transition, so Tebra, and this is going to put us out at Timba. So out here at Timba and flight level 70. Let's look at the ILS approach. Now this is the initial, and does this pick us up at Timba? Hey, look at that, right at Timba, and then we kind of come over here to Mayfield and then loop in. Did you notice, though, that this is the initial approach? We need to also grab the final approach package, too. So that's chart 21-2A. I left this deliberately because there are a number of these that do have final approaches. So a number of European airports will also have a second page for your ILS approach. So make sure you've got that, and then we've got everything else. But the most important part here is we know that our transition is going to be Timba. So we're going to select Timba and insert that into the flight plan. And all of that is good and wonderful. Looking over here at my received messages, I have not gotten my load sheet, so I'm going to have it resend my load sheet, because I need the load sheet to go and do what I call the init page B, page 2 of the init. So go to init, go to the second page, and as we look over here, our zero fuel weight is 58.03. 58.03. Again, I'm typing this in slowly. If it's a 0 or something, I'll put a second digit in. Otherwise, you only just need one past the decimal point. Page 2 is going to give me my initial zero fuel weight, which is 30.3. So be sure you do the slash 30.3. And we're going to put that in right up top there. Now then, it says fuel planning and a bunch of other stuff. What we need to do is make sure that everything is aligned, and I believe that everything is aligned. So there's a little test that you can do to make sure your fuel planning is good. I'm going to accept that page and return. And what you do is go over to your flight plan, and what we need is we need our alternate fuel for Manchester, and that's going to be 1.7 is the number we're looking for, 1.7. There is our GPS primary, so once we get GPS primary, we can go ahead and put that 1.7 in for alternate fuel, and then hit fuel planning. If it turns green, life is good, and you're wonderful, and you can fly your airplane. Now we're going to look up here and look at the actual gas gauge. Fuel on board is 6.5, and I'm going to put my 6.5 right down here into block fuel. There we go. Fuel planning is done. And so we'll come over here. Hey, look at that. Boarding is complete, and the airplane is so smart that it went and it retracted the jetway and closed the door. I gotta like that. That's not something that the pilots are gonna have to deal with, so why should we? We're sim pilots. We deserve respect, right? Okay. Come on over here. Let's get our departure heading. Our departure... Oh, it's not heading. Departure data. V-speeds for takeoff. Yes. So if the final load sheet is available over here, we'll click it, and that's going to give you your takeoff weight. We know that we're going to be here on runway, and memory fails already. It's 27 left. So click 27 left. It's dry here at Manchester today. Flaps will be configured as optimal. I'm going to not force a toga. We're going to turn packs on. So that's the air conditioners. Let's keep the passengers comfy. And now we can sync our live weather. And then the only other thing that we might do is a possible intersection departure from a big airport. We're not doing an intersection departure today. So hit calculate. And this is going to give our flap setting. Our flaps are going to be down. Flaps 1, trim is down 0.4. So performance, flaps 1 / DN 0.4. And that goes in there. Let's come back to the EFB. We are going to flex to 56 degrees. So we're going to save wear and tear on the engine. We're not going to pollute very much. We're not going to use as much gas. We are such cool people. V1 is 134. V2 is 140. So 134, 140, and 140. 134, 140. Now, if all of a sudden ATC calls and says, oh, by the way, you're going to change runways, you have to do some of this all over again. Let's come on over here. And then there's another number, and this is thrust reduction and acceleration, 1180. And it's the same number, you just put it in 3 times. Actually, we don't need to. It says 1179. That's close enough. I think it's time to start getting ready to go. So we're going to come over here. Doors are closed. Passengers are aboard. Seatbelts are going on. I'm going to turn on the, I'm going to arm the emergency exit lights. We're going to go and turn the APU bleed on, and I turn the aft temperature down 1 click because there's more people back there. Let's go ahead and disconnect from ground power. We're going to turn on the fuel pumps now because I always forget. I'm going to go and turn on my beacon at the moment too because we're going to start to push almost immediately. All of this is good. Let's come on back here to the Fenix app. This looks good. We'll go to ground services, and the doors are closed. We're ready to push. Is your parking brake engaged? It is. I'm also going to make sure my hardware controller is the same thing. So we can disconnect ground power. We can disconnect chocks and cones. I'm going to connect my tug. We're going to use this one, and here comes the tug. And all is good. We'll just do a straight push. Well, we could do a turn to the left. So we could do tail left on this one. The current time on the airplane, it is 13:42. We are approaching 10 minutes late. Now then, that would be bad if we were on VATSIM right now. We're not, so I'm not going to stress it. If we were in a VATSIM event. And that might seem a little crazy. I mean, you know, come on, it's a game, right? Well, the thing is if you're going to be flying on VATSIM, you absolutely need to be ready to depart on time, especially in the bigger events, because they are, you know, they have so many people flying. We'll set the altimeters, 1004. Parking brakes are off, and start to push. And away we go. Hello there. We can also start the engines. So let's go over and get the starter. Starting engine 1. Be smart to look over here. Do we have pneumatic pressure in here at the bottom? We do. Starting 1. 1 is starting. We are also on a taxiway. I have neglected to start squawking mode Charlie on a taxiway. Even though I'm not on VATSIM, I do like to do that so I don't forget. And we're getting a start on this engine. We'll just make it a straight push. And I usually will go back just a little bit beyond a line that's here. This is what I call the crew line. Oh wow, the starters, sounds are so cool. That's a good start line. So let's come on over here and stop the push. When you see the airplane stop, do your parking brakes. It is now automatically just getting rid of your pushback tug, so that is outstanding. And we are looking pretty good. Engine number 2 is coming up. And we do have our final load sheet. And our final load sheet says 3 extra passengers boarded. So while we're starting engine number 2, let's go ahead and go back to init. Go back to page 2. And we're just going to give it the latest data. This is the final load sheet. We already did our fuel calculations, so the only thing we're doing is changing this. Zero fuel weight has stayed the same, 58.0. The center of gravity is now 31.9. That's changed. So slash 31.9. And that goes over there. That's all we're done except this. Go back to performance, return, and we are getting a good start on engine number 2. I did not set my initial cruise. A big thing that VATSIM is doing now, check to see is there an initial climb clearance or a top altitude. In this case, it's 4,000 feet. They do expect you to see that. 4,000 feet. Okay, that looks good. We got a good start on engine number 2. APU bleed off. APU master is going off. While that's going down, we're going to look over here, and what we're going to do is we're going to do the control checks. So look over here, and let's just go ahead and do one more round. Move your throttle forward. And none of that's working. Let's look at flight controls. It's not automatically doing this. Okay, flight controls are attached. There's elevator. There's aileron. There's rudder. Look down here, your trim is down 0.4. It's that small number there. And I have that set up on the hat switch so that I have control of that. All of that looks good. And let's see, it's going to be flaps 1 for takeoff. If it were snowing, I would not be doing my flaps at this point. I would wait till we got closer to the runway. I'm going to turn on my predictive wind shear. We're going to arm speed brakes. It's taxi time. Nose light on. Look over there. Look over there. Now then, one of the coolest things that they've done is you can come over here to the airport chart and you can see, okay, here we all are here. But if you get out of this and make sure that you're tracking your airplane and centered up, you can zoom in and look at this. This is the really, really cool, this is the really amazing taxi charts and ground charts. That's how you find them here on Navigraph. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go and just slide this to my other monitor so that I can see it. We're going to look down here and release parking brakes. My feet are on the toe brakes right now. That way when I look up, I haven't started rolling. Toe brakes are released. And let's go ahead and start our taxi to the runway. Add just a little bit of power. As soon as we start to roll, nose wheel tiller over and roll it back. This airplane just needs a nice little bump on your speed, and then it really just does a nice thrust idle taxi. Now, one of the things that I've noticed is if you're doing a really tight turn, it will continue turning even if you've released the nose. I'm guessing that Fenix has accurately modeled this to be like the real airplane. And out we go. Looking down at the ECAM checklist, the only thing we need to do is the takeoff config check. And now our ECAM checklist is good. We're ready to go. If there's no slush and ice, you could, even if you are trying to get things done, do the first click on the landing lights. That's going to drop them down out of the bottom of the airplane. It's not going to do everything else. And then one of the final things I'll do, especially on VATSIM, there is a line in your flight plan. It's tee-off fuel. Nothing to do with your golf game, but it says 6290, so 6.2 is going to be our number for this. So that's in the back of my head, and I'm going to look down at the gas gauge, and if your fuel is less than 6.2, you don't have enough fuel for takeoff. That's just all there is to it. You don't have the fuel for takeoff, and you're not ready to go. So if you don't have the fuel for takeoff, that's the bad thing. As you can see, my taxi, we're right about 12 knots right now. It's supposedly, I like to be around 10 knots for a tight 90-degree turn. We've got plenty of room to maneuver. So 12 knots is pretty good. Is that 12 or 17? Yeah, 12. And then out we go. And if you look outside the airplane while you're taxiing, I mean, we've all been passengers, right? Most of us. This is what it looks like out the window, right? So now you know that this is a perfectly acceptable taxi speed on this airplane. 10 to 12 is awesome. If we were back at Denver and we're going out to runway 8, okay, I might be a little bit of a NASCAR driver there and Formula One down that long taxiway, Mike. But beyond that, I'm not gonna, you know, this isn't gonna be the taxi speed. And everything looks good. ATC is just called and told us to line up and wait. As soon as I get clear for takeoff or line up and wait, I go ahead and do my strobes. That just says to other people that, hey, this airplane may be taxiing, but we're serious about doing that flying thing, and, you know, be ready. Looking over here, all of this is looking good. Now, we would be turning on traffic and Terra and stuff, but that sim basically says have your traffic on, is mode Charlie from the gate, so they want that. And here's our lineup and wait. And just nice, gentle stop here. Everything else is looking good. I think it's time to go. In fact, ATC said clear for takeoff. Landing lights, the last thing to do. Shall we go? I usually roll my throttles forward to a little below that half mark. I don't know what the actual procedure is. I go to the half mark and look and see, and I see that my engines are both working. They're stable. So, manual flex, SRS runway, auto thrust blue, everything is set here. I'm reading off the top line here. Those are the things you read. The one thing that I wish this airplane would have was airspeed callouts. I would really like that if that's something that they added. There's 100 knots, and you look down, Airbus pilots look down and say checked. And then here comes V1. There's V1, there's the little triangle, there's rotate, up, and away time. But if we had the airspeed callouts, what I would really like about those is that way I can keep watching the runway, so I'm not swerving on either side. Landing gear, going up. Gear is now up, and I'm flying my flight directors. Lever climb, thrust climb. Lower that nose, lower the nose. Now, if you're in VATSIM and you've done a good job of setting up your flight management computer, as soon as you've got your flight directors centered, just go ahead and hit AP1. It's not going to have any violent jerks to the right or to the left, and it's going to go ahead and set you up. ATC just called. Climb and maintain 17,000. So they just kicked us over to departure. So there we go to 17. Speed is coming up nicely. I'm going to go ahead and I forgot to do constraints. That's a good thing to be sure and click into gear. And now we can just kind of sit back, get comfy in the chair. And believe me, when it's cold outside and stuff, I do get comfy in the chair. You really need to do that. Have your coffee ready to go. Especially if you have a cold. Here comes the letter S. So as we approach that letter S, that's going to be slat speed. Slats and flaps can go up. And there we go. Always fun if you have time. Come on back here. Do your flap lever. You can watch the slats go up. It's the little thrills like that in flight sim. And oh my gosh. I do like to tell the story, and I do this probably far too much, of, you know, how you can be watching videos here on YouTube. There are people that travel in the real world. They take their cell phone, they stick it in the window and record the video outside their flight, and then they go and post those whole videos on YouTube. One day I was watching one of those videos, and it was a small flight. It wasn't a big deal, but I was watching the video and just looking at this, and the YouTube video, I was thinking to myself, wow, that looks like Microsoft Flight Simulator. And then, of course, it hit me that, wait a minute, that's real world. In other words, that's how good the scenery has gotten. So I have no doubt that if we had taken off real flight out of Hanover, this is what it would look like. It is so good. And if you're a travel geek like I am, and you don't get to do any traveling, that's just the thing that is so nice. QNH, the other thing I love about the Airbus, I can go and I can just, it flashes at you when it's time to reset your altimeters. The Boeing is nice, but all it does is change color. This one flashes at you, says, hey, pilot, you need to do something here. That's nice. Now that we've taken off, one of the things to do is you can see we're still flight tracking. I'm gonna go ahead and start to zoom out a little bit here. You can see we passed another airport. So I'll zoom out just a little bit here on my Navigraph chart and slide it over there. And that's just one little visual reference that says, yep, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And that's really kind of comforting, especially if you're in a VATSIM event. Okay, there's our nice departure. You can see that I waited until a nice departure before I went over here and decided to disarm the speed brakes and clean up the cockpit after takeoff. Very important. There's 10,000 feet. We can go do landing lights. I'm also going to turn off the nose light, and this is the time to do a cabin call. Let the cabin crew know that it's 10,000 feet. Come on, we've all been passengers, right? At 10,000 feet, what happens? You usually hear a ding-dong, and then the flight crew gets on the PA and says, the seatbelt sign is still illuminated. You're supposed to stay in your seat. And I'm saying it in a mocking voice, but there are people that just do not seem to have the brain power to realize the seatbelt sign is on. It's on for a reason. Don't be a jerk. Okay, so here we are coming up here. And I realize some people have to go to the bathroom. That's why I love to talk about, not choosing the Vente, choose the Grande at the airport so that you can plan ahead. Trust me, I've done that once. I've never done it again. So it's just one of those things because the seatbelt sign's on for a reason. And all you have to do is remember the stories about people that are injured because of turbulence that happened that we weren't expecting. That's why you keep your seatbelt on at your seat, even if the light's out. 13,000 feet, up we go. ATC just called, says climb, maintain your final cruise level for us. Flight level 380. Just let the airplane go. Now, if we were in a big VATSIM event, we would not get just 2 clearances. We would probably get 5. Okay? And in a VATSIM event, you're going to not have a nice, smooth VNAV descent. They're going to bring you down as they need you because they're shoving so many pixel planes through the sky. Oh my gosh, can you imagine this? One of the things that's a little annoying to me is the real world airlines are starting to, take a real hard view of their pilots taking pictures and stuff like this. I think that that's too bad. I really love to see those pictures. It's some beautiful photography. And I know that there's probably some lawyer and some PR weasel that's telling them to do that, but man, it's so cool to get to see a pilot from British Airways take an incredible sunset picture without, them having to worry about them getting written up or fired because they posted to their social media. As it starts to get darker, as it probably will on your long hauls, turning down the PFD is going to be something to do. Now, one of the things that I find it really hard to do is, this is generally our takeoff view. This is our takeoff view in the airplane. I'm having a hard time seeing the crosshairs here on the flight directors. It's getting hard to see those, so I really do wish that they would make those a little bit easier to see. One thing you can do to make it easier to see, though, is just drop the intensity of the LCDs down a little bit as the flight progresses and it gets darker and darker. And I'll do that also with the ECAM, the upper and lower, and sometimes I'll even hit the dim buttons here on climb. And And then, you know, if you woke up in the morning, you got a cold, you woke up in the wrong side of the bed, whatever. One of the nice things to do is, unless you've got to, you know, get out of the house and get going to work and stuff, go ahead and start up the flight sim. You don't have to be on VATSIM or anything, but set yourself up on a nice flight and then just put the view outside the window. You know, then go make breakfast and come back and enjoy your breakfast like that. You know, we occasionally have people come into the Spy flight over on Twitch saying, oh man, I don't feel good, it's been a crappy day. And I said, hey, fire up your flight simulator. This is kind of therapeutic. Whether you're physically sick, mentally overloaded, or something like that, this is just a really nice place to go. We're starting to move out of the area, so I usually kick my my map up to about 80 miles. And then once we've exited the star, I'll go from constraints to airports. And the real world pilots, one pilot is supposed to have terrain radar on, the other pilot is supposed to have weather radar on. I think as the terrain radar and weather radar get better, I'll start doing that too, because that's what the real pilots are doing. Oh, sorry about the sniff. And everything is looking good. The next thing that I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start doing what I call my fuel fixation. And especially on a VATSIM event when you can run out of gas. So one of the things that I'll do is I will come over here to McDo menu, FMGC, and I will come over here and I'll hit the fuel prediction button. And look up here, estimated fuel on board. That's your estimated fuel on board when we land at Gatwick. So over on your flight plan, there is your reserves. There's 3 levels of reserves that you have, and it's right here in planned fuel. I'm using the Lido style of charts. Okay, so continuous for 15 minutes, contingency for 15 minutes. Okay, that's 15 minutes of fuel, 0.628 kg of fuel, okay? And I'm doing the decimal points because that's the way we enter those into the McDo. Alternate fuel. This is how much fuel it takes for us to get to our alternate airport. And our alternate today is Manchester, so 1.7 is what it takes. And then FinRes, final reserve fuel, that's 30 minutes of flying time, okay? And that's 1.01. These 3 fuel numbers here, so those 3 all add up to FinRes and alternate. That is the 2.7 that you saw me enter into the fuel prediction numbers. Or, yeah, I think I did that, didn't I? I know you do that in the Boeing. Maybe we don't do it here. I think it's more automatic in this airplane. Man, I clearly need more coffee. Anyhow, the important number that I'm going to fixate on here is I'm going to look over here, and that's this number. Come on. There we go. At Gatwick, I'm estimating, the airplane is estimating that we're going to have 3.4. The number on the flight plan is 2.7. We've got more. Life is good. If it was less, then it would be like, oh my God, we're all going to die. You know, pixel death, but still. That's a number that I keep an eye out on. Now, let's say you're not taking the nice little Airbus, you're taking the old A310. Here's the deal. You know that there's this thing called optimum cruise, your optimum cruise level. I'm not seeing it on this page here, on my cruise page. Over in the older bus, it gives you an optimum flight level. So do I have it over here? Cruise, 0 fuel weight, extra time, minimum descent, final time, blah, 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 blah. I don't see it here either. I know it's somewhere, it's just my brain is so fried right now. But in the older Airbus, in the A310, it will, on the cruise page, give you an optimum flight level. If you're flying at flight level 350 and your optimum flight level, according to that, it says, you know, higher than that, like 370 or 390, and you filed for 350, that's the time to get on the radio, and say, you know, to ATC, Lufthansa 441 requesting step climb to flight level 370 or something like that. That way you can get your altitude up to where your engines are the most efficient and life is good. Because if you stay at flight level 350 and your optimum is 37 or 39, you're going to see that estimated fuel on board number start going down. And when that starts to go down, you're going to see, especially on a very, very long haul flight, it will cut not only into your reserve, but you will run out of gas. So that is one of the things, especially in the older Airbus. And I think you got to worry about that in a Boeing too. Maybe not so much in the newer Airbuses, but there we go. And we have reached our final cruise. So we're at, no, we haven't. We're still climbing. I need to go back to performance. We are 70 miles from final cruise. We have passed 25,000 feet. 25,000 feet is just an arbitrary number in my twisted little mind here, and that's when I usually, unless there is turbulence, that's when I turn off seatbelts. That's usually when I'll do that. Another thing that I'll do here is if it's nighttime, I will turn my internal lights, the dome lights, I'll turn that to dim if we're flying at night. It just adds a little bit more light to our simulated cockpit, and there we go. One of the neat things about the electronic flight bag here is Navigraph integration within the iPad. The reason that I don't use this is I do videos here on YouTube and I live stream and stuff like that. Because of that, when I want to show a chart or something, it's just so much easier for me to come over and get the desktop app. But I will say this is a really nice, and if I'm just flying for me, I really like using this. So you can import from SimBrief. This will give you your flight. There it is. There's Hannover. There's the route. There's EGKK. So you can come over here and you can click this one. Reference docs, ground charts, departure. It's really nice to maybe come over here and we'll look down here for, let's see, parking stands, airport. There it is. And you can go and click it and it will have it just right here. And it's really, really nice. That being said, I will also say that I really like the charts that I have over on over in the desktop app. It's really awesome. You can also hit the night button here, which is nice too. But like I said, this is really great. I've been real happy. That's a neat thing to have, especially in the real world, because if you watch the real world videos here on YouTube, you know, from the cockpit videos, you can see that they all have their chart just right there so that they can look and reference it. Passing 3.2, almost 3.3. Looking outside, you can see the clouds have really started to move in. So much for awesome scenery. And really, this is all is right with the world. So this is the point in time where instead of me just sitting here and mindlessly chattering away, what I will do is we're going to reach our climb in 52 miles. Our top of descent is 159 miles. So when we get to be about 75 miles, I'm going to restart the video. And then that way you can go and just kind of fly along. This is also an incredibly good time. We're not on VATSIM for a flight like this. This is a great time to kind of click around in your charts app. Go and take a look at something like SkyVector. SkyVector is absolutely outstanding for going and taking a look at real world weather. Again, SkyVector is real world, so you don't need to set up a login or anything on this. And you certainly don't want to file a flight plan on SkyVector because that's like real. But it gives you some really pretty cool information. And you can see right now I've got cloud tops on. So basically it looks like we got clouds all the way into Gatwick. So we had some nice clear skies here going out of Hannover, but it does look like Okay, we're going to read a book on this flight because there's going to be just not that much to see. So now's a great time. Click around a few things. Also, check the different pages here in the McDo for monitoring, fuel prediction, cruise phase, and have a look at those things too. And I will see you 75 miles from top of descent. Hey, welcome back. I hope your flight's going well. It is going pretty good here in the Spy cockpit. The airplane is still up in the air, and that's certainly a good thing. Hello there. Thank you for sticking with me. I hope you, like I said, I hope your flight's going good. The top of descent hockey stick for me is right here around 60 miles out. Now is a good time for us to go and do a final check of the weather. If we were on VATSIM, we would be checking to see if there is an ATIS. But probably the easiest way for us to do that is you could use Sim Toolkit Pro, and you can go and get the METAR here. So EGKK, and click METAR, and there is our latest weather. So we're going to go ahead and click that and pop this in to my flight notes. Flight notes, you've probably seen this before. It's a text file that I've made over the years, and basically this is where I cut all the data in that I'm going to need to complete the flight. I think if you're getting started on VATSIM or something like that, maybe the best thing to do is have a big old pad of paper and a pen to start, but then eventually you could transfer over to a NotePad if you wanted to, and that works out pretty good. First thing to take a look at, though, is over on our charts. And the first thing we're going to need to know, unless VATSIM gives us an altitude, is what is our cleared altitude. What if VATSIM just pops online and says, cleared to descend via the Tebra to Gulf arrival, runway 27. Okay, that's all they've told us. So as we come up on Tebra here, which is our gateway into the arrival, we can look over and see at the end, flight level 70, maximum 220 knots. So that means that we're cleared down to 7,000 feet. So we can come on down and dial that in. Now, the newer Airbuses, you got to actually tell the airplane to descend. The older Airbus, you can arm the descent. It will descend for you automatically. But this one, Airbus wants a human to tell the airplane, yes, it's okay to descend. And everything's looking good here. There's 51 miles out. Another check of the fuel prediction page is good to do. And you can see that the fuel prediction page is relatively happy. We have a company message. Oh my gosh, what could this be? So go over here to McDo menu, ATSU, AOC menu, receive messages, and this is probably from Lufthansa Ops saying you pushed back 8 minutes late. What is your problem? And they want a report. Now, you can blow this off. You don't have to do anything. But 8 minutes is what we got to do. So let's come on, and we're going to go over to return, and I'm going to go to ADC delay. ADC delay, and the time was 8 minutes. I'm going to put that in right there. Then you can come over to the electronic flight bag, and you can do your delay allocation card. And these are all the codes. So was it an ATC startup delay, a departure runway change, landing error? I don't see what in there that says the YouTuber was talking too much. But the YouTuber had a cold. I don't see that one. So let's just go OTH and other. We'll just do that. So we'll come down here and go OTH. Now, I don't think that anybody actually looks at these. So we'll just put that in there and send it, and it will make the simulated airplane happy. Coming back in here, you're going to get a received message again in a little bit from your airline's ops center that says your pathetic excuse. Up there it is. Our excuse for being late has been received. It doesn't say whether or not they accepted it or not, but you get the picture. So we've gone and cleared that. Let's go back to FMGC. I'm going to go back to my fuel prediction page, and we're going to look over here and see our top of descent is now 37 miles out. So all of this is looking good. We've gotten our latest weather information. Another cool thing that you could do is go to the arrival performance page. And I've already done a little bit of clicking here. So I've already selected 26 left. I've said that it's a dry runway. I've refreshed the METAR, and I've applied the METAR, and I've gone and put this 61.4 tons in. That is my expected landing rate. We could get an updated number for that if we go over and do the next phase here. I think, is this the one? Maybe it's the other one. Let's look at the landing page. Are you going to give me a landing weight, VAP, mag winds, transition, blah, blah, blah? Okay, that one is not going to do that there. Let's look at init page B. Will they give me one? Zero fuel weight, fuel on board, gross weight, center of gravity, final. I don't see it. I've got to think that it's somewhere in here, but there is a place you can get something. And this is where I went and got mine, and I got mine on page 1 of the flight plan. My estimated law has nothing to do whether the cops are looking for you or not. What law is landing weight, and I did the 61.4, and that's where I went and did that. So it does want our destination data. We could do this now. Now, let's say you didn't want to go to Sim Toolkit Pro. You could also come back in here to do menu, and you can do ATSU, air operations, weather request, and do EGKK, ident. I want the METAR, and send it. Weather request, we're going to come back in here, and let's go to receive messages, weather data, and there's our METAR. So we can put it in from here. So performance, 20 miles to go. So we got time to get this done before we have to descend. So let's go to next phase, and next phase, the altimeter is 1004. 1004. There's our QNH. Our temperature at Gatwick is 9 degrees. Our winds at Gatwick are 240 at 10, 240 at 10 knots. And then the last thing to do is come on over to your approach page. Now, you're not going to get it on the initial page. You got to go to the final page, because remember, this is one of those approaches that has 2 charts. And our ILS decision height right down here, it's always at the lower part of your page, whether it's an RNAV or an ILS, it's 396. So 396 in the barrel box. 396, and enter. Let's go back to performance. We now have 13 miles to top a descent. I'm going to return over here. I'm going to go to menu, FMGC. I'm going to go back and do another check of my fuel. We got plenty of gas. Life is good in the airplane. So we're really coming up here on our descent. This would be a good time if you want to make your announcement to the passengers and say, hey, about ready to start our descent into Gatwick. Weather in Gatwick's pretty cool. Well, not that cool. It's a little breezy. We got over scattered clouds at 4,200. Oh, the wind's out of the west at about 10 knots. Should be a nice smooth landing. Looks like it's going to be an on time. We'll start our descent in just a few minutes. So you got about 10 minutes before we have to turn on the seatbelt sign. If any of you have any further amounts of coffee to recycle, now's the time to do it. And we're getting closer and closer. There is 6. I like to press the button between 2 and 1. If I do it right around, as soon as I see the 2 pop up in my top of descent distance, that's when I like to do that. Now that's for a smooth and by the numbers landing. Descent, I mean. If you're in a big VATSIM event, it's not going to be smooth and by the numbers. The controllers are going to step you down and slow you down and speed you up as they need it. Uh-oh, time to hit the button. And there it is. press the top part of the button, the dot appears there, and our descent has started. Once I do that, I will come over and turn off airports and go back to constraints. That way I can monitor our descent and make sure that the airplane is where it's supposed to be. One way that you'll know that we're where we're supposed to be is this little dot here. This is not to be confused with your green dot speed when you can start throwing flaps out. This is basically your descent deviation. And the only thing that's deviant right now is my sense of humor. So right now we are non-deviant. We're right on our descent path. If you start, if your speed starts to kick up a little bit, you know, you start to get a little bit high on the descent, you might have to throw out some speed brakes. But other than that, that should be good. And everything else is fine. The only other thing that I'm going to do is I've got my charts ready to go. One thing to do is to have a look here at the, I call it the radio station call sign. And that is the 3-letter identifier for the ILS. And I'm going to say, okay, it's India Whiskey Whiskey. And I'm going to kind of have that in the back of my brain, because eventually we should get over on the primary flight display. It's going to display the ILS. It'll display the frequency. It'll display how far away you are from the ILS in most cases. And it will also give you that call sign, India Whiskey Whiskey. And so one of the things I want to do is see if that indeed appears in the primary flight display. If it does, guess what? It means we're looking at the right ILS and all is right with the world. If not, then chances are you may need to go into the radio page, and you may not be going and doing automated radio. Now, another thing you can do is if you look, you can see the airplane has already identified India Whiskey Whiskey as the ILS. So the airplane's already looking at it. So you could actually hit a button there and do that too. So that's another thing to do. I'm going to go and leave this on performance for a while. I'm going to keep the fuel monitoring over there. That is good to go. If we have to go around, and on VATSIM, in a big VATSIM event, yeah, you probably have to go around. I'd be ready for that. That's why monitoring your fuel is a mission critical thing to do. And everything's looking good up here. We are at 32,000 feet. You can get to sit back and enjoy the ride just a little bit. Have coffee. Ah, does that taste good when you have a cold? Speaking of cold, if you've take a look outside, as you approach in. Yeah, okay, it's snowing. It's 22 degrees Fahrenheit, -6 degrees Celsius. I have a cold. I am probably going to not go outside today. I think I'm going to do flight sim things. A very good day today to stay indoors. Go make a nice lunch. Chili. Add just a little bit of cayenne pepper in there. Make it just a tiny little bit spicy. Might help you kind of, blow out the cold a little bit. So not too much cayenne pepper. Remember, cayenne pepper is one of those things that if you put a little bit in to start, it really starts to increase your rate of, spiciness. You could also use the Navigraph to monitor the lines of when you're going to be changing centers. That kind of helps out a little bit. It's when you should expect to perhaps get beeped by ATC if you're on Unicom. The other thing that I will do is once I know that we're not going back to our departure airport, I will clear those charts out of my stack of charts. It just cuts down on the confusion here in the flight deck. And if you're in a big VATSIM event, cutting down on as much confusion as you can is a great idea. Also, now while we're on our descent, life is easy. This is a great time to have a quick look at the arrival chart. We're coming in on runway 26 left. That means we're going to be exiting to the right. We have 1, 2, 3 opportunities for a high speed. Chances are the best one for us to get is Foxtrot Romeo here, because that's going to take us right over there. Remember, 26 right is it's a glorified taxiway now here at Gatwick. But Foxtrot Romeo means we're going to be able to make a right turn. It's going to be Juliet coming on in here, and then things get a little bit dicey. So as you go over here, make sure you got your gate chart in. We're just going to go ahead, and I have no idea where Lufthansa parks here, but we'll just go ahead and come in here, and we'll come in at Juliet. How about if we get off at Quebec and Kila and grab 106, and that'll be our gate. In other words, if you could possibly start to have in the back of your mind what's going to happen, particularly at a confusing airport like Gatwick, you know, it's got confusing taxiways and stuff like that. That's a really good thing to do. And we are at 27,000 feet. The other thing that I might do is I might come over to my flight notes and start clearing up a little bit of stuff. Okay, we don't really need the departure ADAs. I'm going to leave my my alternate in here, but if I've got a bunch of stuff in here that I don't need, that's a good idea to clear out, because you may use this to type a fast note. If the controller, you know, if you're going into some place like Gatwick, chances are the ground controller is going to give you a whole slew of taxiways, and no human being is going to remember that. So I'm going to make sure that I got a place to type my, you know, turn left on Delta, go right on Yankee, straight on Victor Papa, stop at Victor Papa 1, and you get the picture. Also, this is a great time if you have a moment to figure out what your arrival gate might be. So generally, you know that on VATSIM, the controllers will say, you know, after you get off the runway, and the tower controller says, exit right when able, ground point 9er. Okay, that's switch over to ground. And as soon as you check in with ground off the runway, almost always they're going to say 2 words, say parking. Okay, now, important safety tip. Sometimes in a VATSIM event, ground controllers have no sense of humor. So don't come back and say the word parking. If they say parking, you don't just say parking. They don't think that that's funny. So when you if you can determine, okay, Lufthansa parks here. So gate Echo 10, if you know that Lufthansa. Now, if you're shadowing a real world flight, you could go to something like Flight Radar 24. You could go to something like Skyvec FlightAware, and you could look and see what the real world airplanes are doing. The real world airplane flight that I'm kind of shadowing right now departed from Kila 8. So K8 was my departure gate, according to SkyVector. So now there was no direct air service. This one was going to go to Frankfurt and then on back into Gatwick, but there you go. So if you could go and determine that, and if they say parking, you can say, you know, we're going to Bravo 10. Now, if they say that Bravo 10 is taken, then say, fine, Bravo 11. But at least you're able to give them an answer, and that's going to give you a gate even faster. And you're going to end up going to the gate that you would probably go to. We're past 25,000 feet. Remember I mentioned that little arbitrary number that I picked as a sim pilot? So 25,000 feet, seatbelts. There goes our seatbelts on. I'm also, as we get a little closer, I'm going to bring my map in to 40 miles. And this airplane also has terrain radar. So we're going to be good pilots. I'm also going to go and turn my terrain radar down a little bit, because it can be just a little bit much. Now the greenish blue, the turquoise you see there, that's water. We're out over the water. We're out over the channel right now. So, but we're going to go ahead and start. I'm trying to be a little bit better about doing things like that. We're still on our descent path. We are supposed to be at flight level 140 here at Abtum. Should you also have a moment, if you want to just go in and try and familiarize yourself with some of the names? Tebra, Abtum, Arnon, KK63, Lark, and Timba. Remember, when you're coming in, they may tell you to go direct to Timba, and they say it really, really fast, and they say it with a local pronunciation that you might not understand. But if you kind of have a familiarization with those checkpoints, that's going to save you an awful lot of frustration. So we're coming on in here. All is good. Seat belts are on. Passing 19,000 feet. If we want to come on here, get a little bit closer, we can see the transition level is flight level 60. Sometimes the airports will change your transition level, and so that's where you would change it if you're going to want it to flash at you at the right time. And we definitely like to have things flashing at us at the right time. And I realize that with my twisted sense of humor, that might sound like I'm talking in a way inappropriate, but I'm not. So there you go. So we're going to be waiting for this to start flashing at us. I'm also going to be anticipating the fact that ATC is very probably going to be calling me with some vectors. Be ready for vectors. Have you set up a hold? Have you set up a hold in your airplane before? Yeah, I was a little bit rusty at setting up a hold in my in the Boeing the other day, and we did a hold coming into we did a hold going into Princess Juliana, and I was able to at that point in time, you know, fake it for a little bit. But have you gone and done that? Looking over here, you can see that there is the latest weather information. So we're going to be going down most of the runway here. I'm set to do idle, no reverse. Auto brakes are low, so that's pretty good. Remember, as we were talking, as we come on in here, I don't need to, you know, unless they're, you know, they're super jammed up and stuff, we could probably land here and try and get off at Foxtrot Romeo. That's a reasonable exit, unless all of a sudden, you know, the controller calls with panic in their voice saying, hey, get off the runway, we've got 5 planes. You know, that doesn't usually happen, but there we go. One of the things about the Fenix is it does not handle Microsoft Flight Simulator's icing stuff very well. So one of the things that I've gone and done is I've turned off icing. Apparently it becomes a real problem sometimes for you. Icing would be great, along with turbulence and all the other real world things, but if they're not playing nicely with your airplane and you're in a big VATSIM event, I'm willing to sacrifice that little amount of immersion for completing the flight successfully. So right now, as we come on in, a good pilot is going to come in and they're going to take a look at their temperature. Total air temperature is -9. Static eye temperature outside the airplane's -20. We are in the icing zone. So, you know, 10 degrees above freezing. 10 degrees above zero is anything there or below is when you need to go and have your anti-ice on. So technically, as we're coming into the clouds, we should be doing anti-ice. And when they get it fixed with the airplane, I'll turn it back on. So there we are at Abtum. We're coming up to Arnhem. And if you can and you have the time, monitoring your approach here is good. Monitoring your approach on the approach chart is good. Hey, they normally do a hold at Arnhem. Have that in the back of your mind. Okay, that's Arnhem. We could be doing a hold there. That way, it's better to not be surprised. If you look in here, there's also a published hold at the Mayfield VOR. They could be having us do a hold there too, just in case. And this is looking good. Everything's set here. Life is good here. We're going to come on over. There's Timba. There's Mayfield. After Mayfield, we're going to make a turn. This is all fairly tight, too. So I'm going to expect a little bit of a slowdown from ATC, too. And then the last thing that I'll do is I'm getting closer and closer is I'm going to go and have a look at Missed Approach. So Missed Approach, climb to 3,000 feet straight ahead. Passing 2,000. We're going to make a turn left to heading 178, then as directed. So, Missed Approach, straight ahead, above 2,000 feet, turn to 178, stop at 3,000. There you go. That's what we do. Because It's a big VATSIM event, and chances are a few people are going to go missed. We're passing 12,000 feet. All is right with the world. Seatbelts are on. We're going to be at 8,000 feet at Timba. Timba has not yet shown up here. Let's see. Our descent is still looking pretty good at the moment. Now, if you're flying one of the older airplanes, so you're flying the A310, here's the thing. The autopilot is not as good as this airplane. And it's not because the developer just was slacking. That airplane does not have a great, their autopilot is not as precision as this one is. This one will take us and put us almost right on the ground. The only thing we're going to have to do is probably take manual control of our speed. That's going to be about it. The thing about the older airplane is as you get closer to the ground, you're eventually going to want to take it out of managed mode and start doing your own vertical speed for your descent to manage it that way. So, you know, when I go and do the event this weekend, which is the Caribbean Shuttle, I'm taking the A310. I will, as I'm coming in a little bit closer, I will be taking it out of managed mode. Now, we'll have to do that anyway because ATC is going to be vectoring us around. That's just what they do. But be ready to do that. It will not put you on the ground as neatly and as, you know, orderly as this airplane will. Oh my gosh, check this out. We get to look at a little bit of scenery. Imagine that. And that's one of the other things to do. If you have a moment, especially in Microsoft Flight Simulator, you're in a good spot. The AP is on. ATC isn't yelling at you. If you get a chance to look outside your airplane and enjoy some scenery, that's a big part of what we do here, is enjoy the scenery. Okay, above 4,000 feet at Timba is what this says here. No, it's 4,000 there. There's 10,000 feet. Airplane's going to be slowing us down a little bit. We could also come up here and do landing lights. I'm also going to turn on the nose light. I'm going to do a cabin call, sterile cockpit for the crew. At this point, ATC, you know, if life is really exciting, ATC may say direct to Mayfield and descend and maintain 2,000 feet. Oh, direct Mayfield, we just got a speed up here. So be ready to know how to do a direct to. And we're going to go now direct to the Mayfield VOR, direct to Mayfield. Insert, descend and maintain 2,000. Now at this point we're going to go and make it an open descent. Just go down there like we're supposed to. It says too steep ahead. So one of the things we may have to do is speed brakes. The ATC may also very reasonably call in and say airspeed 210. So these are things that they will do. So airspeed's 210. All we have to do at this point is the little arrow going down. Are we going down to the speed? Yep, we are. So we're good to go. Now there's a little thing in here that I call the hash marks. It's really kind of hard to see. It's these two little gold bars that are above an airspeed. That is when it's okay to start throwing out your flaps. So when we get between this and the dot here, that's when I start to think it's okay to go ahead and do flaps 1. And then if you feel like it, go back into the cabin, watch the slats go out. For flight simulator pilots who like to go and fly simulated airplanes, there's something strangely satisfying about that. As we come on in, you can see here is our approach into EGKK. And you can see this little green line here. That's when we're going to reach our descent altitude. And at this point in time, VATSIM may call and say, turn right heading 280. Descend and maintain 2,000. So they just vectored us even closer. So now we're off the flight path, and we're now going direct to the beginning of the ILS, which is 30 miles away. Now, they will do that on occasion. If you start off early in a VATSIM event, if there is a gap of airplanes in front of you, but a lot of airplanes behind you, expect that they're going to do things like that. They're going to want to move you along and get you out of the airspace as quick as possible. If there are a lot of airplanes bunched up ahead of you, then at that point in time, they're going to probably make you turn right 30 degrees, vectors for traffic. So that's one of the things that you should expect too. And the way for you to find out that little bit of information about what's going on in the world ahead of you is VATSpy, or in my case, I like to use SimAware. This is what's going on VATSIM right now. If we were on VATSIM, we would be coming into, so here's EGKK. We would see our airplane right about here, and we would see, is there a bunch of airplanes stacked up behind us? No, not really. Actually, EGKK is online right now. This is another great place to check the ATIS and make sure that you're all set up for the runway that you're supposed to be using. So that is another incredibly valuable tool as you are flying along in SimWorld, is to take a look at VATSpy, take a look at SimAware. And there we are, standard altimeter. Our altimeter here is 1004. So 1004, 1004, and 1004. Almost like we know what we're doing. Continuing our descent, looking good. We're now about 20 miles away. I imagine they're going to keep us at about 210. They may even tell us if there's a bunch of airplanes behind us to speed up. And the real world pilots will tell you that in situations like that, a big part of their life as they're approaching busy airports like this is go up, go down, speed up, slow down. That's all they do, is speed up, slow down, as air traffic controllers try and get everybody properly sequenced with the right amount of space so that they can get the maximum number of airplanes on the ground at the time. And so VATSIM controllers are doing exactly the same thing. This is also an incredibly good time as you're getting close to the airport to clean up your simulated cockpit. Okay, you probably noticed I have a cold. I've been sipping on my coffee here, but as we're getting closer, if I've got an energy drink, if I've got a big thing of water, if I've got my coffee cup, as I'm getting closer, I'm going to start moving these things away from my keyboard, away from my controllers, my USB controllers, because you're going to get busy. And as we get busier and busier and busier, you have an opportunity, more and more opportunities, to knock things off the table, to spill stuff into your keyboard. That's just not good. So that's why I like to say now's a great time to start cleaning up your cockpit, your sim cockpit too, particularly on a long haul. Okay, on a long haul type of flight, you're going to have snacks, you're going to have beverages. You may have forgotten that there's still a little bit left of, soda in your soda can or something like that, and you just set it off to the side. Now's a great time to get that out of the way. And we're coming up on 2,000 feet. We are now 20 miles out. Let's go ahead and activate LS. Activate it for the co-pilot 2. Look down here. India Whiskey Whiskey. We are 24 miles out. How about that? We are picking up the ILS. So we are correct. We have picked up the correct ILS. At now, ATC may do a fine-tuning of our course. They may start telling us to slow down a little bit, but they might tell us to maintain 2,000 feet, cleared for the ILS, runway 26 left. Okay, we're cleared for the ILS. So as soon as we start, okay, we've got localizer here. So here's localizer. We could use the localizer button right now and have it capture the localizer. So let's go ahead and arm that. That's a good idea. Let's also get ready for speed brakes. Arm those. We've done our homework. We know that we can do auto brakes low. It's going to be a thrust to idle reverse. And we should probably get off the runway right where we want to. Let's see if it works. We will test the theories. So at this point in time, there's two kinds of commands that ATC will give you on these. They may tell you, join the localizer. Or they may tell you, clear for the ILS. If they're telling you to join the localizer, you're only cleared to hit the localizer button. You're not cleared to start your descent yet. So that's an important safety tip on that one. And we couldn't descend anyway. We're at 2,000 feet. We're not even receiving glide slope yet. But that's an important thing. I've heard a couple of people not get yelled at, but ATC has said you were not cleared to descend, because there's a difference between join the localizer and cleared for the ILS. Everything's good here. Okay, flaps are 1, parking brakes are off, speed brakes are set. Life is just generally good. At night on VATSIM, we're starting to really get to see all of the other traffic, which is really pretty awesome. During the day, it's a little bit harder to see, but TCAS is incredibly important too. And we're getting a little closer to the ground, so you can see terrain radar is starting to pick up. We now have glide slope and localizer. So as we're getting closer and closer, they may say Lufthansa 441, reduce speed to 180 knots until 5 miles DME. Cleared for the ILS, runway 26 left. Maintain 180, like I said, until 5 miles from the runway. At that point in time, we can go over here and switch from approach localizer to approach, and then they want us to go to 180 knots until 5 miles DME. That'll be another thing that they usually do. Then I'm going to look over here, and I'm going to look for my next set of hash marks. There they are there. There is another level of flaps. We have time. I'm going to look outside and watch my flaps go down because it's cool. Okay, we still haven't got glide slope and localizer yet. Now we're really close to the hash marks here for flaps 3. I don't usually do that until we start our slowdown. So here we are getting ready to come and collect. We're getting closer and closer. I usually do landing gear between 5 and 10 miles out. In older airplanes, like the Mad Dog, I do it even sooner because there you go. As we get closer on in, one of the things that I'll do is there we are showing up here. I have a moment here. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go and get my chart set up so that I can see what I'm going to need to see. The other thing is as soon as they kick you over to tower, look at your vPilot, you know, the way that we talk to VATSIM, and I'm going to look and see if there's ground. If there's ground, I'm going to preset that in my radio because we are so busy coming on into the airport. I don't have time to reset a radio at that point in time. So if there's ground, I'm going to preset it like as soon as I have a second. You know, contact tower, blah, blah, blah. Okay, thanks. And as soon as I contact the tower, I'm looking up to see what's the ground frequency. And if ground is active, I'm going to set it in my radio. So when I get off the runway, all I have to do is push a little button and I can concentrate on keeping the airplane where I'm supposed to be. We have just snagged the localizer. Glide slope is still up above us. Looks like we're going to intercept that at FF26L. I've also kicked my map in. There is 7 mile finals. ATC said, you know, 180 knots until 5 mile finals. So another thing to do is to come over here, go to your performance page. If you are still in descent mode at this point and you have control of your speed, now is the time to activate the approach phase. This is going to go ahead and get your speeds ready to go, so that all I have to do is when it's time to do that 5 miles and we get to slow down, all I have to do is hit managed and we're in business. Last thing to do, if you're like me, you tend to squirm around in your gaming chair and stuff. Now's the time to make sure that you're sitting up the way you're supposed to. You can get to the throttles, you can get to the stick, your feet are on the rudder pedals because it gets busy from here. Here's the edge of the runway. We're coming up on about 6 miles, and in fact, there's the distance to the runway. So 6 miles. We were told to do 5 miles. We are now about ready to start to snag the glide slope. Now then, there is a little bit of fudging you can do. So, but generally, if there is a stack of airplanes behind me, I'm not going to fudge that 5 miles. As much as I would like to be at my speed at the moment, I'm not going to do that if there's a lot of planes behind me. And in fact, I might give myself a little more time. On the other hand, if there's an airplane ahead of me and it is a little bit slow, they haven't exited the runway, then I might fudge a bit. Now, ATC might not appreciate that, but if I can slow myself down a little bit sooner, then maybe I don't have to go around. And ATC doesn't want me to go around. ATC wants to get rid of me. Flaps 3. Gear down.
1,000.
It's a little bit bouncy here today. I'm a single person in a cockpit. I know that the tough flight simmer thing to do is get off the autopilot as quick as you can. I like to wait until my airplane is fully configured for landing. The ECAM checklist is clean. It says the cabin is ready, and I wait until the airplane kind of settles itself down on the approach. And we're pretty good. And then I'm going to look here. The last thing I'll do is look at the wind. It's right down the runway, but you can see it is gusty. So it's a little gusty. Hand on the stick. AP is off. Captain's got the airplane. And the hardest thing for me to do as a live streamer is to not look over at chat and other things. This is the point in time to concentrate on your landing. Also, at really cool airports like this, I like to look at the scenery and sort of like, no, you need to concentrate on landing.
100 above.
A little bit low.
200. Minimum.
Landing. Over the runway.
Glide slope. Glide slope.
40. 30. 20. Retard. Retard.
Oh, we're floating with the winds.
5.
Reverse. Float, float, float. It's a windy day in the neighborhood. Okay, auto brakes medium and just idle reverse. Idle reverse is doing pretty good. 60 knots, stow, manual braking. Look at that. There is our, there's Foxtrot Romeo, just like we thought. A little bit of braking off. Landing lights off the runway. Strobe lights. Speed brakes can go down. So right now they're probably still up. Yep. So speed brakes down. Flaps are going up across the runway, across the glorified taxiway. It's really interesting in a VATSIM event going out of Gatwick. They actually have multiple hold short points if they're taking off going in the opposite direction. Look over here. I will generally try and keep it rolling in a VATSIM event and follow the other traffic. Now, some controllers appreciate it. Others say, you didn't have clearance to do that. But generally in a really, really busy event, I will tend to try and keep things rolling. Now we can go ahead and turn off terrain radar. I'm going to turn off the ILS. So ILS is here. We can clear that master warning. Everything else is looking pretty good here. We could also come down and we'll start up the APU. Although some airplanes, airports, you don't. Especially in Europe, they don't want you running the APU at this time. I'm also utilizing the moving map here. Remember, we're coming over here to Pier 6. And looking down here, speed brakes are down, flaps are up, life is good there. We've got APU coming up, our lights are groovy up there too. If you had engine anti-ice on, that can sometimes be a bit of a thing to worry about. Look at that, we didn't even scratch the paint, but boy was it gusty and windy today. It was gusty and windy for sure. Okay, let's see. To come over and do this, they would probably have us on Juliet. It's going to be left turn at Romeo, right turn at Kila, and we are ready to go. We're going to park. You can see up over here. There's the bridge. There's the control tower. We're parking at a building near the bridge. That air bridge is pretty cool. There is a very blue building over there. I believe that is the firefighters, the airport fire department. And as we come up here, we've got another taxiway, but what we are looking for is a Romeo. Look at that, it even says so. So there's taxiway Romeo. We'll look over here. Some airports, the taxi markings aren't good, but they're getting better all the time. Okay, the next taxi marking we're looking for is Kila. So we're looking for a K. Now our taxi marking here says up, there it is, Romeo, and right turn on Kila. Look over there, make sure there's nobody where we're going. APU is up and running. And what did we decide? It was going to be, I think we said we were going to try and do stand 106. So stand gate 106. I think that this construction that you see over there, they are going to be extending Pier 6 out. So they're adding more jetways. And the other cool thing is like the real airport, you can see the markings here. There is, oh my gosh, that says it's 109. 107. I don't see a 109 there. There's 106. So there isn't a 109 on mine. And it even is marked there too, 106. There is also, we're starting to get some really good gate guidance going in now, which is really nice. We didn't have it before, but we're starting to get some decent gate guidance going in. And a nice gentle turn around here. And if you go and you take a look here, it may seem like as we're doing this that I'm going ultra slow, but if you look out to the side of the airplane, you can see we're really not going all that slow. And in fact, I think we do have the gate guidance widget is working here. There it is working. It's a little high for us. So I'm having a hard time seeing it. So that may be up there just a little bit high for us to see in the airplane. And I think that once that's gone, that should be it. Let's look over here. We're pretty much where we want to be, A320. So parking brakes, We do have the APU up, so engines as quick as we can. I will also come over here for rather quickly and turn off the squawk. We'll come up here. We're going to do seat belts. We're going to disarm the doors. I'm going to do the beacon. We should have turned off the taxi light as we were approaching the gate. And we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's our fuel pumps. External power is now available. And you hear the beeping. So this airplane will also go and get you your jetway and give you the opportunity to say, do you want to deboard? And this airport also, this part of the terminal is also modeled, which is really pretty cool. So do you want to deboard? You can deboard. And there we go. How about that? Nobody was hurt, nobody was arrested, always great. And this again, this is a freeware airport. I'm so impressed with the quality of Gatwick. I got it at flightsim.to. If you don't have this one, oh my gosh, it definitely needs to be in there. Wow, was it windy. So my landing rate was a -352. I'm going to say that for windy conditions, that's not a bad landing rate at all. So I hope that maybe this was kind of a nice flight for you. It's a great opportunity, you know, when you're not flying with friends and stuff. If you have a chance to just go and fly along by yourself and just do a training flight, it's a great way to brush up on some of the skills. And as we are approaching a very busy season of long hauls and big VATSIM events, it's a good thing to do. Thank you for watching my video. As I always like to say, this is not about the right way versus the wrong way. This is about what works for me. And if you're just getting started in flight simming, hopefully this is working for you too. I am still new here on YouTube. I'm reading all the questions in the comments and responding, and I appreciate everything that you're saying. Thank you. If you feel like you like this, to like, subscribe, share, all of that silly stuff too. I also want to say a special thank you to the supporters over on Patreon. About a month and a half ago, I launched a Patreon page with flight briefings that we do every day before the Spy flight on Twitch, and the response has been really nice. But I could also use your support too. This is how it is that I pay the bills. Thank you so much for flying along. I will look forward to seeing you in the friendly skies back here on YouTube in about a week, and also a lot sooner over on Twitch. As I always like to say, stay healthy, stay safe, and happy landings.